Cassandra's heart raced with disbelief as she stared at the ultrasound screen. What she saw shattered her perception of her beloved pet snake. She had brought Reggie to the vet, suspecting he might be ill or experiencing an unusual behavior. But the reality was far worse than anything she had imagined. Cassandra's mind was in turmoil. How could she have been so blind to the true nature of her beloved pet? For weeks, she had been unaware of Reggie's true intentions, sleeping soundly with him curled around her body. Now, the thought of it sent chills down her spine. She couldn't help but feel foolish for not recognizing the signs. The way Reggie had coiled around her, the way he had watched her with his penetrating gaze. She had interpreted these actions as affection and loyalty, but sadly the reality was far from comforting. The comforting idea of her snake watching over her during the night now seemed terrifying. What has she done? But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. In the quaint and tranquil town of Bar Harbor, everyone knew each other's name and business, and gossip spread like wildfire. The streets were lined with charming houses, well-kept gardens, and friendly faces. So when Cassandra, a solitary woman in her mid-30s with a penchant for privacy, moved into the neighborhood with an enormous python named Reggie, the whispers began almost immediately. People couldn't comprehend why anyone would choose to live with such an unusual companion, and concern for their own safety grew. Despite the wary glances and hushed conversations, Cassandra was undeterred. She had adopted Reggie from an exotic pet rescue center after he had been abandoned by his previous owner, and their bond was unshakable. Her neighbors couldn't understand the connection she shared with the snake. They didn't notice the way Reggie's eyes seemed to glow with understanding when Cassandra spoke to him, or the way he would tenderly easel her cheek with his scaly head, as if reassuring her that he was there for her. A snake was an ideal companion for her modest home, as it required minimal care and didn't incessantly bark like her neighbor's tiny dog. Moreover, it hadn't caused any disturbances so far. Reggie had never made any attempt to hurt her or any of the guests that came to visit. If only her neighbors would cease their incessant, unwarranted cautioning. Cassandra had always housed her python in a vivarium equipped with a heat lamp, following the standard practice for reptilian pets. However, as she began to feel increasingly lonely, she decided to deepen their bond and take their relationship to the next level. She genuinely believed they could strengthen their bond. Observing her neighbor's seemingly weak connection with her dog, which was left outside to sleep every night, inspired Cassandra to come up with an idea. In an effort to strengthen their bond and prove her devotion to Reggie, Cassandra decided to take their relationship to the next level. She began sleeping with Reggie curled around her body, a living, breathing blanket that stretched from her head to her toes. Night after night, the two would curl up together in Cassandra's bed, Reggie's steady, rhythmic breathing lulling her into a deep, peaceful sleep, unlike anything she had ever experienced before. As the weeks went on, however, Cassandra noticed a troubling change in Reggie's behavior. He no longer showed interest in the meals she offered him, whether it was fresh chicken or even his favorite rabbit. One morning, his behavior was extremely concerning to her. What was going on? Throughout the day, Reggie remained on her bed, refusing to eat and displaying more agitation than usual, especially when Cassandra attempted to move him back to the vivarium. She pondered if he was merely in a bad mood or unwell. Noticing something peculiar about his appearance, she questioned whether it was her imagination or if he had somehow changed in size overnight. Concerned for his well-being and fearing that something might be seriously wrong, Cassandra decided to take him to the local veterinarian, Dr. Hansen, a middle-aged man known for his calm demeanor and expertise in treating exotic animals. There was undoubtedly something amiss with her beloved companion. Upon arrival at the vet clinic, Dr. Hansen was visibly taken aback by Reggie's sheer size and the obvious affection between the snake and Cassandra. He couldn't help but marvel at the unusual bond they shared. After listening to Cassandra explain the situation, Dr. Hansen agreed to examine Reggie. He suggested that the most appropriate course of action would be to conduct an ultrasound of the snake's abdomen, as it might have ingested something unusual. He conducted a series of tests, including blood work and an X-ray. As the veterinarian performed the ultrasound, his forehead furrowed into a frown, and he looked at his assistant. This caused Cassandra's heart to race with anxiety. What could he possibly be observing? The veterinarian then inquired about a series of topics concerning the snake, including its feeding and sleeping patterns. At that point, Cassandra divulged their nightly bonding ritual. "Cassandra, I'm afraid I have some unsettling news," he said. Trying to maintain his composure, he decided to show her the ultrasound. When he presented the ultrasound results, Cassandra was unable to comprehend what she was looking at. The python's stomach appeared entirely empty, leaving Cassandra puzzled about the issue. The veterinarian inquired if the snake typically stretched out along her body and coiled around her as she lay in bed. Cassandra nodded, affirming, "Well, yes." You see, the vet continued, "Reggie's stomach is completely empty, which is highly unusual for a python of his size. I believe he's been preparing his body for a large meal, and that's why he hasn't been eating snakes are capable of consuming prey significantly larger than themselves, owing to their remarkable ability to unhinge their jaws." Cassandra couldn't believe it. But what could he possibly be preparing to eat? "I've tried offering him various foods and he's refused them all," she stuttered desperately. Dr. Hansen hesitated, glancing at the massive python before locking eyes with Cassandra. His voice was heavy with concern as he said, "Ms. Turner, I think Reggie has been sizing you up as his prey. You will never turn off your computer again. No install. Play for free." By stretching out alongside Cassandra, the python had actually been assessing her dimensions. Essentially, Reggie was rehearsing how to approach his next substantial meal. He had been biding his time, waiting for the ideal moment to capture his prey. Cassandra's heart sank, and she couldn't believe her ears. She stammered, "That's impossible. Reggie would never hurt me. We have a special bond. He's my companion, my friend." Dr. Hansen sighed and replied, "I understand how you feel, but Reggie is still a wild animal, and his instincts are strong. I urge you to reconsider your sleeping arrangements and take this seriously, for your own safety." A shiver ran down her spine when she realized that her beloved Reggie might have been preparing to consume her while she slept. It was hard to fathom that what she had considered bonding was nothing more than Reggie assessing her as potential prey. The notion that she had contemplated whether the snake was watching over her at night now seemed disturbing. In truth, he had been watching and patiently waiting for his next meal. As Cassandra left the clinic with Reggie, her mind raced with a mix of fear, disbelief, and heartache. She struggled to reconcile the snake she loved with the predator Dr. Hansen described. As she pondered the situation, she knew that she had to make a difficult decision. Was it worth risking her life to maintain the bond she shared with Reggie? Or should she take the necessary precautions to protect herself? Despite her protests, Cassandra couldn't ignore the facts. Dr. Hansen explained that pythons were known to be opportunistic hunters, and Reggie's behavior was consistent with that of a snake preparing for a big meal. He urged her to reconsider her living situation with Reggie, suggesting she find a more suitable home for him. Cassandra returned home, her mind racing. She couldn't bring herself to accept that the creature she loved so dearly could ever harm her. She needed to know the truth. Her mind started racing as she went over her options. That night, Cassandra devised a plan to test Reggie's intentions. She placed a life-sized mannequin in her bed, covering it with her scent. Then, she hid in the corner of the room, watching Reggie's every move. Reggie slithered toward the bed, eyeing the mannequin cautiously. He began to coil around the lifeless figure, his body tightening with each loop. Cassandra's heart pounded in her chest as she realized Dr. Hansen's warning might be true. As Reggie tightened his grip around the mannequin, the unmistakable sound of cracking plastic echoed through the room. Cassandra stifled a gasp, her eyes filling with tears. She knew she couldn't deny it any longer. Reggie, her beloved python, had been preparing to consume her all along. Cassandra knew she had to make a difficult decision. She loved Reggie dearly, but her own safety came first. With a heavy heart, she contacted the Exotic Pet Rescue Center and arranged for them to find a new, appropriate home for him. She realized that despite their bond, he was ultimately a wild animal with strong instincts, and that it was never truly safe to let her guard down around him. As much as it pained her, she knew that she had to take action to protect herself. She spent the next few days preparing for his departure, saying goodbye to the snake who had become such a significant part of her life. Then one morning, the day she had been fearing for had arrived. When the rescuers came to take Reggie away, Cassandra struggled to hold back her tears. She stroked Reggie's scales one last time, whispering her goodbyes. As they loaded him into their truck, she couldn't help but wonder if Reggie understood the love they shared and the danger he had posed. It was a bittersweet moment as she watched him being driven away. Although it hurts, she knew it was for the best. The news of Cassandra's experience with Reggie spread quickly throughout Bar Harbor, and for a while, it was the talk of the town. Despite the gossip, there were also some positive and kind reactions. Some neighbors who had initially been wary of her unusual bond with the snake expressed their concern and support for her after hearing what had happened. They offered their help and sympathies. Cassandra was grateful for the community's understanding and kindness. She felt that her experience had brought her closer to her neighbors. In a small town like Bar Harbor, where everyone knew each other, it was heartening to see how people could come together to support each other during difficult times.